Signature Required podcast where we talk about entrepreneurship, your purpose, and everything in between. I am your host, Miss Brittany Renee, and today we have Daryl Bland, owner of Blerr Magazine, here with us.
Hello, Brittany. Thank you so much for having me and sharing your audience with me.
Of course. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And Daryl is also the creative director behind Signature Required, so this is definitely a moment to have you here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. So please introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you have going on.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daryl. I am the founder of Blerr Media and production house catering to LGBTQ POC individuals of high fashion and editorial delivery.
Nice. Well, today we'll be talking about what it means to own a minority-owned business, and in your case, a minority magazine. Tell us a little bit about Blerr, the name, where it came from, the history behind
wow. There's definitely a little history behind it. Blerr, it's definitely surreal. It's a moment I would have never have thought would be here right now, but back in 2019 is when Blerr started manifesting for itself. And I believe it's definitely a manifestation because I was just basically in my aunt's apartment one night at like 12 a.m. in the morning buying domain names off GoDaddy. And I was like, what if I was to start something? And before Blerr, I had a candle business before this, but I wanted to do something more different. And I went on GoDaddy, I started buying different cool names, and Blerr was one of them, and someone took the BLURR, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna do the ERR. And I was like, this looks pretty cool. So I bought Blerr Magazine, I bought the Blerr Agency, I bought Blerr Studio, and I bought Blerr.com, like BLERR.com, which is so rare to get such a 5-letter name off a domain site.
Right.
And I think over the year, heading into October, I reached out to a great friend of mine. Her name is Faith Blackshear, and we haven't chatted for almost like 2 years from our first fashion event that we were working on together. And I don't know what it was, but something in my mind was like, reach out to Faith. And I messaged her that night, and she was all like, okay, like she loved the idea. So I drove down to her apartment, to her condo, the place that she was staying at, and it was like 7 p.m. and I knocked on the door, and we both sat on the couch together, and from there it was like till another 12 a.m. just planning, just thinking, manifesting, and writing everything down. And then the next 2 weeks into that October was just reaching out to models. We were staying up till like 2 a.m., 3 a.m., getting late night coffee and just working, just straight up hustling. And we pulled in 30 models who have modeled and models who never modeled, and photographers, stylists, who are in the industry, and everyone was just so down to collab. Everyone was just so down to work and just be appreciated that they're just being a part of something, and just everyone was just so down within this community. And we, from November, every Saturday of that November, we just executed a huge shoot of like 20 to 30 models and a stylist and a photographer, and it was just so quick. Everyone loved it, everyone enjoyed it, and we did 3 shoots that correlated to the COVID that's happening. And just from there, everyone just started seeing the work and the progress, and a team was built. And then the next of October 2021, we just launched the magazine, and it leveraged into so many different things.
That is amazing. So can you give us a little background of Blerr and like what it means? And
well, Blerr, I would have never thought it would manifest into something of a meaning. First, it just started out like Blerr, like into the Blerr. And now it just manifested into basically saying like Blerr is my community. It's, queer POC driven, and it's about focusing, the micro and the macro perspectives within the Blerr, because the fashion industry is moving at such a quick pace, being a creative, art is moving at a fast pace, and our community is overlooked. It's such a blur, and in that blur is microscopic decisions, artistic works, creative intellect, that is in a Blerr that people just overlook. It's just so quick and so fast, and Blerr is just a moment, just like, okay, it is a detail within a detail within a detail. And it's like when you zoom in on the camera, it just slowly gets more focused. So
I love that.
That's Blerr for you. That's a Blerr for the community.
I love that. And it has a purpose. And like you mentioned with the LGBTQ community, right, there's a lot of just discrimination within like minorities and exclusion. And so you're creating a space and giving individuals a voice to be themselves and to show their creative sides. And like you said, you brought in models that had experience and models who didn't have experience. So what are some of the struggles that you have seen, or any like discriminatory things that you have experienced with building your magazine and your business?
I would say from my experience, someone who's being Filipino, half white, and who's also queer orientated, it's definitely a struggle trying to start up a business, also being young and a college dropout, because people who are in Arizona that have businesses and are investors, and people that I'm reaching out to work with that are connected into the fashion industry by a little bit, by a sense, I don't get the respect, because also they don't see me as someone to be taken seriously. It's like, okay, he's young, he's he's queer, he's Filipino. They don't trust me because they see me as someone like, okay, he doesn't seem like he's too into the community. And the fashion industry here in Arizona, it's just so washed over, it's not respected. We're 3 years behind, and it's a community that's just more as a show or a club, more than an actual fashion industry here in Arizona. So people don't get taken seriously here. Fashion and creative arts don't get taken seriously because it's just more seen as like a show. It's more seen as a club. It's not respected. And being someone who's Filipino and queer, especially for my community, the Filipino community, it's so hard to connect because one, I don't speak my mother's tongue, just Tagalog, and I'm part white, so trying to branch them in, it's so hard to connect with them as fully, and then it's hard to navigate. It's very hard to navigate, I have to admit, because Arizona is just a state of that's not very accepting to the queer community. We have to create safe spaces to bring others together, and I have my community. I believe my community shows up, and that's what truly matters. But trying to market and build a business is difficult, especially now that I'm moving more into production. Someone who creates and produces for clientele, reaching out outside of Arizona is so hard because Arizona's not taken seriously, and me being young, a dropout, queer, we get overlooked. I get ghosted in emails, and the minute I mention Arizona or who I am, and it's definitely very difficult trying to like bridge the gap.
Absolutely. How do you plan to expand to the masses? Because I know you just got back from New York Fashion Week.
Oh yes.
And like you mentioned, when you mentioned Arizona, sometimes people kind of have reservations. So,
well, I would say branching with the masses, since I started up the magazine serves as a portfolio. Everyone wants, the next issue, but building the next issue takes time, and it takes money, and it takes a team. And right now, as I opened up the agency with 3 models, and also the production space to produce and create for clientele, I work it as more as a circular serving business. One of the business supports the other, the agency supports the magazine. So when I do reach out to clientele that has a bigger audience, I want them to know that my market, my queer POC community, I want them to work with them, but not to just use them as profit. I want each other to work, and I want to branch out my models to these clients, and to offer the magazine space, to offer the production value, and reach out to their clientele. I want them to see that these queer individuals, these queer POC individuals, we've been creating the community, we've been creating these these aesthetics, and these businesses are taking in these inspirations and these aesthetics without crediting properly.
Absolutely.
But now that we're in a new age of media and TikTok, these businesses will get shut down so quickly and so fast with the voices, these authentic voices on TikTok that will say how it is. And if you're not crediting properly, then you will get shut down. You will be spoke upon. Once you get spoken upon, it's like, it's bad for your business. You don't want that. And now that these fashion industries and these big fashion houses are looking towards, queer POC as, okay, these are the people that are actually creating the trends and creating what's happening, they have to respect. They have to, to learn that we're here and we're also bridging. And if they want to grow their audience, they have to accept the fact that that audience that they're growing with is queer POC.
Absolutely, because you just touched on that. You guys don't get enough credit, right?
No.
And you guys create so many trends and so many different things in fashion that you don't get the credit for, right? But even at your age and being young, and the community that I work with, Division of Child Safety, there's so many LGBTQ and queer younger kids now growing up, right? And so they don't have enough resources where they feel accepted. They don't have enough resources or even safe spaces to even discuss anything that they're even going through, right? So for the record, I want you to know that you will be iconic, and you will be an inspiration for so many, because you are creating that space, and you have already created that space, and you have such a genuine spirit, and that's something that I really love about you, in that I always look forward to being around you, because your spirit is infectious, and everything that you do, you try to make sure that you do it in alignment with your purpose and where you're going. And that's important, because just being a minority-owned business, right, and being in a space that isn't accepted everywhere, I'm sure there are times when you probably get discouraged, or and you kind of ask yourself, like, am I in the right space, or am I doing the right thing? But you are, and I want you to know that you will continue to grow, and doors will be opened for you, and continue to move in that space of alignment, because that's just super, super, super important. What are the next projects that you have coming up for Blerr?
I would say the next projects for Blerr, we're definitely in the secret seas of secrets, the chambers. But there is projects, we're working on the second issue, and it's very more hush puppy, because I would say it's going to be a big one for this next issue. We already got a couple of the shoots planned and a couple executed. I don't post much on my story. I just, wait for the product to be delivered and show people that, it's happening and it's there. But the focus is definitely the agency, building the agency, while also building the production space and the production value for clientele. And the other part of Blerr is Avant-Garde, which is a space, for events, and for events that to happen for the community. And it's about bringing it to the yard. Avant-Garde is where the word avant-garde derives from. Show up as yourself and show up who you can be, and dress how you want to be. And also, thank you so much for crediting me as an icon. But one thing I can never see is myself on a pedestal. I feel like this fashion industry is so ego driven already, and to my community and people who don't know where to look, I'm glad to be a beacon for that, and a beacon of light. And it's just so crazy to see myself as a mentor for other people. I don't know if I could take that title yet, but thank you so much, Brittany. I think one thing I want to say to my community and people who are looking for a light is just like, it's always going to get better, no matter where you are, or no matter what position you are at in life. There is something for you, and there's always a greater good out there for you in the end. And no matter within the next hour, the day, the year, the month, or in the next 5 years, it truthfully gets better. It's about creating for you, and you have the painter's brush, and it's your canvas, and you paint how you want and paint how you want to deliver to, your community or for yourself.
I love that. Do you have any like fashion editorial inspos that you like pull from when you are creating Blerr or?
Editorial inspo. So when I was creating Blerr from the beginning, I used to work at Forever 21 back in Tempe, Arizona, and I started pulling inspo. So an hour before my shift, I would go into Barnes and Noble, which was next door, and I would pull like 6 to 7 magazines, and I would put them on a table, and I'd be like, okay, here's something that I want to do. Find some inspo. My camera, my old phone is just filled with just like inspiration and written down inspiration.
Wow.
But I would say the top 2 editorials I would pull from would be like Days and Paper Magazine.
Okay.
And those are the top 2 editorials I know are just like killing it. They just respect, streetwear. They respect, high class, high fashion, and just so many fashion perspectives. And I just know paper is just like the next Vogue, and it is already happening. I predicted it back like 3 years ago, and they're just killing it. And I do find inspiration from old editorials like Vogue and other respected editorials, but those 2 are just my inspirations. But Blerr is its own game. It's definitely its own mold, but it definitely takes insight from these editorials. They're just killing it.
No, seriously, I agree. I totally agree. And like I said, this younger generation that's coming up, right? You're creating that space, and I know right now a big one in just the Black community is Zaya Wade, or Dwayne Wade's daughter, and I really commend her for just being herself and being able to walk in that so young. I can't even imagine, just the thoughts, but to have the confidence to be able to accept herself as who she is, right? But then having someone to look up to as yourself, and you creating that space is so needed. Is there anyone that you would love to work with? Maybe like your top 2 people?
Brand wise, I would say Amy Leon Dore or Dion Lee. I would say there's a couple, niche brands out there that I'm looking at, and I definitely want to work with more, students from Parsons or, St. Martin's or NYU. I love young designers, and I definitely want to work with more younger designers. Younger LGBTQ POC designers as well too.
Can you tell us what the acronym stands for, POC?
People of color. LGBTQ is lesbian, LG, gay, bi, trans, and then there's more letters to it, but shortened,
because everyone doesn't
know, but right? Lesbians, D is for gay, bi, trans, and then LGBTQIA.
It's a lot.
POC, it's a lot, but that's the acronym.
Yes. And because this is a generation where we live by acronyms, right?
Yes, I'll definitely respect people's pronouns. I mean, respect people's pronouns, acronyms, but it's just a matter of respect. You don't have to know it right away or know someone's acronyms, but it is, courteous to understand who they are, and just if they correct you, then accept the correction. But I could care less about my acronyms. I mean, I go by they, them, but there's not much.
Okay.
I know who I am, and I don't need to really speak so much. So I'm confident in that.
I love it. Are there currently like any challenges you are experiencing, or ways that people can be of help or of a resource, or this is what Signature Required is all about. We stand firm on collaboration over competition, and you never know who will hear your story, and we have not because we ask not. And so are there any challenges that you are experiencing now that you could use any, direction or help in, or funding?
Challenges is definitely funding. There's a couple things, projects that I do want to work, and it definitely does require funding. I did have an investor lined up, and it was so crazy, but the investor fell through, sadly. So, but I'm not worried. I'm not very money driven. And even though there's challenges out there, there's so many challenges to face, and also me just being an individual and me just being human and starting up a business at such a young age, there's definitely a lot of challenges involved. But money is just more of a tool, and money is just of the essence, and money comes and goes. And I think that's one thing you taught me too, is that money is energy, and money will come and money will go. But it all comes down to the community, and your community is your sales force. It's what drives traffic. It's what drives, sales to the business. And I may not be hitting sales points yet, but I just know it's gonna come. So I'm not too focused on obstacles that are in the way, but there are challenges that require different tools to eliminate these obstacles.
Absolutely. Well, you are on the Signature Require podcast, so we have to ask, what is your purpose in life, and do you feel like you're walking in that right now?
My purpose, I definitely feel like I am walking in my purpose, and every day, I think I am aligning with my purpose. Some days it just feels like, I do have to be in bed and just take a moment to rest, because being a creative and being in business, so taking two mindsets, it takes a lot of energy. And not many people understand that. And not many people, you could be a creative always at the end of the day, but having a business mindset to execute your creativity on a market level is definitely a different ball game.
Mm-hmm.
And being business, trying to indulge into creativity, it's another ball game. But as long as you know what you want, and you know how you want to deliver to certain people and certain masses, then that's all that matters. Your creativity may not be accepted by everyone, it may be critiqued by everyone, but at the end of the day, it's your imagination, it's your work of art, and you will always find an audience who will understand, and you will always find an audience who will love your work for who you are and for what you create. But there's always pros and cons to everything. There's always good and bad, and there's always going to be an audience that doesn't like you. There's always going to be an audience that absolutely adores you. But people are human. You just gotta love them, and if they don't align with your purpose, then it will. But if you have a purpose and you stick with it, then people who are attracted and have almost a similar purpose to you will come to you into your life for a reason and a time. And other than that,
I like it.
There we go.
I like it. How can people connect with you? Where can they find you? How can they purchase a magazine? Do you have a website? Give us all that good stuff.
Oh my God. So the Instagram is at Blerr Mag, BLERRMAG. And then another way you can find me is the agency is Blerr Agency on Instagram. To purchase the magazine, it's going to be at blerrmagazine.com. TikTok, Blerr Magazine. We're building the studio website. I'm going to be transferring everything over to blerr.com because it's the shorter domain name. It'll be respectable. But get the magazine. It's $45, but it's $45 worth of other people's, creativity blended into, my, works of creative direction. It's 256 pages. So
wow, that's amazing.
A book. Wow. It is a book. And even though it makes it on your coffee table, it's still lots of inspiration and energy, and it's energy that's in your home and in your hands and in your eyes.
Yes, well, I am so thankful that you joined us today here on the Signature Require podcast. Yes, and we would love to have you back as you continue to grow and your next issue is out. We would love to have you back anytime, so you just let us know when you're ready to come back and give us all that goodness.
I'm very grateful.
All that secrecy that you have going on. But I am so proud of you, and I want you to know that I am rooting for you, and I'm always here to support you. So
thank you so much, Brittany.
Of course.
I love you so much.
I love you too.
You're an icon.
I love you too. Thank you. Well, that is going to wrap it up for us today here on the Signature Require podcast. I am your host, Miss Brittany Renee. You can grab merch at signaturerequire.com. Looking for accountability partner or personal development coach, you can hit me up at brittanyrenee.com. You can find me at brittanyrenee247 on Instagram, TikTok, all those good things. And this is the Signature Require podcast, and it is here to stay. Have a good one. See you soon.